Jordan, one of the greats, definitely the GOAT. He definitely utilized his triple threat the most. He would catch the ball on the perimeter or on the elbows of the free throw line. He would definitely utilize that triple threat in the pivot foot. So the way he would just utilize that is either going kind of jab, jab, jab a couple times, and then kind of twist the body around, back you up, give you a little spin around, and then fade away, right? It was unstoppable. It worked every time, and he kind of made it his own move.
Hi guys, welcome to the Mind, Body, and Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Itairon, and on this podcast, we discuss ways to develop ourselves in mind, body, and spirit with different guests specializing in different fields from all walks of life. Enjoy. Hi guys, welcome to the Mind, Body, Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Itairon, and I'm here today with Zoe Azran, basketball coach and analyst and fanatic, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to break down basically the play styles of basketball legends and their biomechanics and anything to do with kind of their reaction time, their coordination, and everything physically that made them who they are and how they play. So first one we want to talk about is obviously MJ. If you want to have the GOAT debate with me, just leave it in the comments. Don't talk to me right now. And don't call me and don't at me, and it's all good, all right?
MJ is the GOAT.
Okay. So we're going to start with Z breaking down basically how MJ liked to play, from his fadeaway to his dunks to his passing, basically his play style. And then I'm going to break down his body type, kind of his muscle fiber type, which I know there's different muscle fiber types, but basically what we can theoretical kind of idea of what his consisted of, and then basically his training methodology. Okay, Z, take it away.
All right, well, Michael Jordan, one of the greats, definitely the GOAT, and the head and the top of Mount Rushmore. I would say that, yeah, he definitely utilized his triple threat the most. So in terms of when he would catch the ball on the perimeter or on the elbows of the free throw line, he would definitely utilize that triple threat in the pivot foot. So the way he would just utilize that is either going kind of jab, jab, jab a couple times, and then kind of twist the body around, back you up, give you a little spin around, and then fade away, right? It was unstoppable. It worked every time, and he kind of made it his own move. That's what he usually used to do, especially towards the latter end of his career. In the beginning, when he was a rookie, he definitely was way more athletic, and he definitely blew by a lot of his opponents. And you can definitely say his first step on that catch, right away, he would just blow by, and he wouldn't even realize that first defender. He's not even noticing that first defender. He's just looking at the back end, and he's seeing who's there. Is it Mutombo? Is it Shaq, right? And as long as he believes that he could take that person on, he would go for it every time. So I would say that was basically his major spots, yeah,
okay.
On that end.
Elaborate more on, let's say, like when he would choose to dunk and when he would choose to do the fadeaway and when he would choose to pass. What do you think kind of ran through his head?
I think a big thing was shot blockers. So if you would see Mutombo on the back end, you're definitely not gonna try and take on a shot blocker like that every time, especially with the height difference and Mutombo's reaction time and his, just his ability to just get the ball and not hit the body was, ridiculous. And that's just Mutombo. There was so many other good shot blockers, and back in the 90s, it was a different NBA, right? So it was way tougher. The rules were different, and, things weren't called as easily as today's NBA, you could say, right? So you're not going to get that foul call, and you wouldn't get that ref always giving you, 14, 16 foul shots a game. So Michael Jordan definitely used the fadeaway, I would say, when he would see the shot blocker at the end, right? If he saw that there was no one there, if it was just a kind of a weak defender on the back end, he would take on that initial defender and try to drive the lane. Absolutely.
And that's a good segue, right? Because, like I said, we're going to break down the body types of these legends, right? So Michael Jordan was 6'6", I believe. What was his weight? See, do you remember?
I think it was like 210 maybe.
Yeah, it was not something like
220,
substantial,
225.
especially in a 90s NBA,
Yeah.
right? Where everyone was just extra big, right? So, yes, he would be probably classified as a mesomorph, very athletic body type. So for those watching, an ectomorph is usually skinny and taller. An endomorph is usually wider and a little more chunky, right? So a Charles Barkley, a Shaquille O'Neal, that would be an endomorph, right? And Jordan, if you're thinking about like an ectomorph, that would be more of a Kevin Durant, right? So when you look at Jordan, you see him really prime right into that meso, very athletic build, pretty easy for him to build muscle, right? Doesn't put on too much fat, and I wouldn't call Jordan skinny, especially if you look at him from now, for what his actual, what his natural body type is, right? So because of that, he would basically be able, that's just his body type, right? So he'd be able to take on defenders if he's playing, you know, I don't want to say Muggsy, right? But if he's taking on a smaller defender, which there were, like Reggie Miller, etc., he'd be able to kind of just swoop by and go for the dunk, even though he had such power that he could even dunk on these big guys. Like I think he dunked on Mutombo that one time.
Yeah,
right?
He did get him one time.
So that's going to transition to our muscle fiber kind of account, right? So when you have type 2X, a lot of Olympic lifters have type 2X muscle fibers, and then they just have extreme power for a short duration. And then if you have type 2, just regular, you have power. A lot of major league sports that are endurance based but still kind of power based in spurts, they have a good type 2 count. And if you have endurance runners such as that, that's type 1, right? So we could say Jordan had like a really good kind of average between the muscle fiber count because he was able to go and go and go. There's stories of him playing golf all day and then going and playing a full basketball game and then staying after to practice. Like the guy was honestly
he was a competitive monster.
Yeah, nuts.
Yeah. Definitely, he had an issue mentally, but I think that's what drove him, right? So I think that drive in him, you know, he was just relentless and he kept going, and you know, sometimes you would just be like, wow, you wouldn't believe he could do that, right? Like that dunk on Mutombo, like you wouldn't think that he could get got like that, but he got, and yeah, sometimes Jordan just kind of went above and beyond, and that's why he is the GOAT.
And that's the transition right there. That's when it's not just about muscle fiber count, it's not just about body type, it's not just about training methodology, it's what you got up in your head, right? And I would say, besides maybe Kobe, no one was really able to recreate that mental state, right? So just to finish off, Jordan trained with a trainer most of his career. When he went to baseball, they changed the training methodology to make him more of a baseball player, more shoulder heavy, more stuff like that, right? So again, guys, for those of you watching, those aspiring basketball players and all of you guys that have visions of athletic success, right? Remember, you do have to train accordingly in the gym, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about a smaller Hall of Famer. Let's talk about Allen Iverson.
Oh yeah.
Your favorite player. Tell me about him.
My favorite. I would say he definitely had a Jordan-esque mentality too. You know, if you're gonna be pound for pound the best player in the game, and a lot of people would recognize him as pound for pound the best player. The man was 165 pounds. Maybe like a good 20 pounds more than I am, and he dominated. He was an MVP for a year, where some players never get that, you know, that credential. He definitely rose above any expectations. But at the same time, like, he used his speed, right? So he was so fast, and no one could ever stop him. So you have to use your strengths when you know your weaknesses, and he knew his weaknesses. He knew he wasn't the greatest defender, even though he held his own as a defender. He did gamble a lot, but you got to use your speeds, you got to use your wits, and sometimes his ability to just kind of predict plays and to somewhat you know, anticipate what's gonna come next. You can't, you know, like, I don't even know anything else to say. Like, he was relentless in terms of how many hits he would take. The man hit the floor so many times, tore ligaments, broken bones, right, fractures, but still kept at it. So that's a testament to his will. And, you know, again, I'm not even going on the skill yet. Like, his skill-wise, he was amazing. You could say he definitely revolutionized the crossover, right? He made that mainstream. He also had a great mid-range, right? So if he would just blow by you, you didn't know if he was just gonna go right into the lane or if he was gonna stop on a dime like Westbrook and just pull up on you, right?
It's 100%. He was so much fun to watch. Like, I found myself just watching videos of him like way after he retired and just like being in awe of that kind of, you know, like that beauty on the floor, right?
Absolutely.
Like to be able to score is great. And like I don't want to talk about Tim Duncan. I love Tim Duncan, right? And he's a Hall of Famer,
Best
5
power
rings,
forward.
best power forward. I wasn't gonna get out of my chair and jump from Timmy's like bank shot, you know, like that wasn't gonna make me go nuts, right?
Yeah.
Iverson was just crazy.
He's the reason why I fell in love with the NBA.
Yeah.
He's the reason why I started watching. He's the first jersey I believe I got. Maybe him or for Vince Carter. I'm not sure, but and Vince Carter also a good reason as to why I watch basketball. But yeah, Allen Iverson, man, like that guy, one of a kind.
I know, right? So let's bring it back to his to the 3 steps that I'm gonna do for breaking down his training methodology, his physique, and his body type. So his body type, I would say, is an ectomorph. We talked about that before, a little bit skinnier. He had a hard time putting on weight, even if he did, practice, and we're all going to laugh because practice, right?
Yeah.
But, he had a hard time putting on weight. He didn't like lifting weights.
He didn't lift weights, really.
Yeah, I think he was quoted saying that shit heavy.
Yeah.
So, like maybe we don't know a true kind of idea because everyone's a little bit of a mix between endo, meso, ecto, and we gravitate towards usually 2, with some people being just kind of like we talked about Jordan, just really meso. But as far as we can understand it, and as far as we know from his interviews and from what we see when we take like stock of him and look at him, he is an ectomorph. He had, I think, more type 1 muscle fibers. But again, this is just me being arbitrary, right? So for all of you guys watching and being like, oh, blah, 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 I'm like, I don't know his actual fiber count. I don't know what it is or how it is. I'm just making assumptions and guesses, right? So I would say he'd have more type 1.
I have a question. What's a type 1 fiber count?
So type 1 muscle fibers basically mean that you're able to have more endurance. They're more endurance type fibers, okay? And type 2 is like endurance, but as well like explosive power, and then they'll get tired. Type 1 muscle fibers, if you have more type 1 endurance runners, for example, they are going to get tired less quickly, naturally, because that's their genetics and that's how their body is.
Yep.
Right? Versus type 2, it's a mix, right? Yeah, they might have power spurts, but they won't be able to go as long as predominantly type 1.
He averaged like 40-plus minutes a game.
He just wouldn't get tired, right?
He was the Sixers.
Yeah.
Like, that man took Philly by himself to the finals. Won 1 game against the Lakers and Shaq, and then he got swept basically after that. But
and then like if you're switching back after that, so his training methodology, right? We don't know if he was in the weight room a lot. He says he wasn't, and we don't really have any kind of accounts on that. But his crossover was learned in practice from a teammate. I forget the teammate. Do you remember his teammate that taught him the crossover? He talked about it. It was in where did he go to university? Where did he go to college?
He went to Georgetown.
Georgetown. He said that, I forget the name of the guy he said. We'll leave it in the description after the video. But this is the man that taught him the crossover, right? So if you're talking about training methodology, if you're talking about Iverson, he didn't train in the weight room much. But when he saw something and wanted to learn it, that man learned it.
Yeah, in terms of game theory, yeah, he definitely was a student of the game, right? So he was definitely, like in terms of just play-wise, if he was maybe an extra 60 pounds bigger and he had an extra 6 to 8 inches on him, he would have went down as one of the best players in the game, probably, in terms of GOAT conversations with Kobe, MJ, even Tracy McGrady. If he didn't get injured because he had a lot of injuries that kind of derailed his career, but if Tracy McGrady didn't get those injuries, he was considered as one of the GOATs, and he was competing with Kobe at the time for best player in the league. So yeah, man, Allen Iverson, bro, it sucks.
So do you think it's the mentality that kind of brought him
I think
down,
it was
right?
definitely the mentality. I think he was definitely a student of the game. In college, he was also a big football star, as you know, so he definitely played a lot of football, and he actually was a primary football player, and then his mom, I think, got him into basketball.
I remember that,
But hey, man,
he was an All-American, I believe.
Yeah,
football
he
too,
was. Yeah, he definitely was a star, and he was a running back in his football team. But
So if we tie that back to the physicality of these different players, back to their body types and all kind of stuff, there's also something that is genetic, which is reaction time, and you can train reaction time and you can train coordination, but naturally we will have faster reflexes, right, based on what's happening, right? And I think Iverson, maybe even more than Jordan, because he took him into that crossover, right, was just naturally gifted, could just react on a dime, could see something from the corner of his eye that no other players could see. And I think he could have been also an amazing pass first player. Obviously he was a legendary scorer, but I think he had that reaction time. He had that ability, that coordination, that if he wanted to, he could have facilitated like amazingly. Look at Isaiah Thomas, how he was facilitating. I'm talking about the original one, right? And like I think Iverson could have done that too. What do you think?
I think, listen, like, you know, it's tough on him because he played with a lot of, you know, subpar players in the beginning of his... Well, in the beginning, it was okay, and then when he went to the finals and, like, towards, like, 2004, 2005, 2006, right, that Philly team wasn't good, so, you know, you can't expect him to pass.
Facilitate
but
on,
like,
on a gifted team?
Yeah, exactly. Like, when he was on Denver, he was on the Denver Nuggets, and him and Carmelo Anthony were both the leading scorers. They both averaged 30-plus points a game, and he was averaging 6 assists a game. So, listen, you know, you would think, like, hey, 6 assists is not a lot, but that's average. If you look at point guards in the league, like, they average 6 assists a game. Like, only the Chris Pauls and the Magic Johnsons and the Isaiah Thomases are averaging 10-plus assists,
and
right?
That's a great segue into the next person I want to talk to, because who's the one who beat the Denver Nuggets in that final series, or in that semi-final series?
Yeah, that was Kobe.
All right. Take it away.
Kobe Bryant, baby. Yeah,
Kobe being Bryant.
Yeah, he's definitely Michael Jordan 2.0. You could say, in terms of play style, right? So the way he played, he definitely emulated Michael Jordan in that sense, right? He definitely used his triple threat moves a lot, whereas Iverson wouldn't use that triple threat move a lot because he was more on that speed and the athleticism part, right? Kobe definitely used more of the mentality, so he would definitely use that triple threat, the pivot foots, and he would back you down, and he would kind of take you slow, right? He's going at his own pace. He's not kind of rushing anything, and he doesn't even mind the double teams because he could take that double team. He would just kind of spin away from a double team. So in terms of that, yeah, I would say very Michael Jordan-esque. Mentality-wise, same thing. His competitive spirit was off the charts. So, yeah, you know.
So this is actually where I can actually break down differences in genetics and differences in training methodologies that kind of become more apparent when you look at someone like Jordan and Kobe that are so similar, because they're both 6'6". They both have similar wingspans. Everyone does videos where you show Kobe and Jordan and there's flashes and you just see basically the same move, right? But I would say, just like how I was talking about body types, is that Kobe is a meso for sure. He's muscular, but he's more skinny if you look at him compared to Jordan.
Definitely not as, yeah.
Exactly. So I think his natural body type is ecto, but because of his training and also because, yeah, he is a little muscular, everyone has 2. He goes to the meso. But we both know how much Kobe trained, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Even more than Jordan, right? Like,
yeah, he was relentless
nuts.
in that.
And I know he's with world-renowned trainers, so I don't doubt that they tried to satisfy the nutritional needs to help him grow muscle. But again, like I talked about in another video, is depending on your goal, how are you training, right? And muscle grows at rest, not at work. So, and also Kobe was known for not getting enough sleep. He was sleeping like 4 or 5 hours, right?
Yeah.
And sleep is also needed for muscular development, right? Now listen, this guy's a champ. This guy's a 5-time champion. I'm not going to say he didn't know exactly what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
But Kobe's mainstay on what he was doing, I believe, was muscle memory development. He pounded those moves into him no matter what, and it wasn't about muscle, and it wasn't about speed, and it wasn't about endurance. Obviously, those were facets, and obviously his trainers were making sure that was happening. But I think what I believe is the moves meant the most to him, that he could accomplish those moves in play.
I think you fucking nailed. Sorry, I think you nailed it though. I think you, because he definitely wasn't as fast as Iverson, but he's not as strong or athletic as Jordan, right?
Yeah.
So, how are you gonna become one of the greats if you're not as fast as this little man and you're not as strong and you can't jump from the free throw line, you know, like Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be a student of the game and you gotta learn those moves to a T,
100%,
right? You gotta
100%.
make sure you like break down everything to a science. And yeah, he was a scientist in the NBA. He definitely broke it down to a science.
Oh man, and that's the mental state too, right? Like he was so zen and like
zen, but also
meticulous.
a freak.
Oh yeah, and his competitive nature
only
was
a freak
scary.
could be that good.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
waking up at 4 a.m. It's like they're already. One of these quoted. He's like, okay, well, if you wake up at 4 a.m. every day and you train, then you go back home and eat, then you come back and train, then you come back and train again, then you're already 4 hours ahead of every other one of your peers or competitors, and you tack that up over 5 years, they're already 5 years behind. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
like, what is going on?
This man doesn't sleep.
Yeah, and the fact he played in LA, a city that's so big with so many different distractions, but he never got distracted. He just woke up every day, did the same thing. The man had a family with 3 kids and he didn't care. Like, I'm not saying he didn't care, but the man just worked at it, and That's hard, man. Like, it's hard for a lot of people to do that because, we're, in the end of the day, they're just people, right? So they have lives, but Kobe definitely made his life to be the great, like one of the greats. He wanted to go down as better than MJ, right? And a lot of people will discuss why he got that number 24 at the end. Well, maybe you could say that was one of the reasons. He wanted to be one up on MJ, but, he's 1A, he's the 1B to the 1A.
He's very, both amazing. You can compare him, but like at the same time, their careers are different, and who they are, even though they are so similar, is different when you take into account some
You can
stuff.
say I would say the biggest difference there is that, and I think Phil Jackson actually says this, so I'm not gonna say that I said this, but Phil Jackson says, because he coached both of them, so Phil Jackson says that they had the exact same moves. Kobe did exactly the same thing. The only difference is that MJ made it easier on himself.
Yeah.
Whereas Kobe made it a little harder. Like Kobe definitely took harder shots. Kobe definitely, he would definitely shoot over a lot of more double teams and.
Oh yeah. Kobe wanted the road less traveled for sure. So we can talk about that's how he made himself better by pounding those moves into himself day in, day out, his insane training routine, everything like that. But I don't know. Part of me thinks Kobe truly relished that harder road, the road less traveled, right? That Robert Frost quote,
exactly. He says always. Well, he said, always enjoy the journey that you're on, right?
But I think he craved that hardship. Yeah. I don't know if he craved it because no one craves hardship, right? But he relished in those hard moments, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what it is. And now I want to actually take it. And I want to actually ask your opinion for this last player that we're going to break down. Who do you think was a big partier in NBA? You can say current or retired. Bring me a big party guy who tries to rely on his talent. Training is a little bit less than talent.
I'm not going to know who's going to train, but I know who's a big partier. You can say people like James Harden, J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith was a big partier. But you can even say people like Allen Iverson definitely like the party too. So, different people like the party.
Take a pick. We broke down AI. Who do you want to break down? I'll give you J.R. or Harden.
Well, we can do a little bit of both because JR, again, JR was more of a plug-and-play player, so he was more of a role player. He didn't, especially, I guess you could say back when he was on Denver in his early career, so when he was a rookie on Denver, when he was in New York City, he was crazy athletic. He was crazy, he had some crazy moves, and some games you would be like, damn, this guy could be a star one day. J.R. Smith would explode for 30, 40 points.
So breaking down J.R., so basically, if you're looking at his body type, he's definitely meso, right? He's not too skinny, he's not too fat. So, if you're looking at, I don't want to say fat, right? But it doesn't have because they're major athletes, right? But he's not too stocky and he doesn't retain any fat. So if you look at James Harden, which we're going to talk about in a bit, right? You see when he kind of lets himself go, it shows pretty quickly, right? Yeah. So I would say James Harden's endo-meso, right? But honestly, JR is right in the middle of that. And he is, I would say, a little bit type 1, type 2, not type 2X, even though he has some crazy dunks in the beginning of his career. I think later on he chose to be more of a shooter. What do you think?
Yeah, he was more of a spot-up shooter. He definitely was still athletic.
Yeah.
But, once he started playing with LeBron James, he definitely played that three-point role. And, he would just wait for
his training methodology is pretty much straight on. He was in the weight room, listened to his coaches. You can tell that they tried to develop his endurance a little more, right? They would do a bunch of hit training with him. I would see it actually on different channels, how he would sprint, stop, sprint, go, right? They really focused on that endurance aspect because he managed to maintain some muscle mass even if they were upping his cardio. And if he wasn't really treating his body correctly and partying, he seemed to maintain that muscle mass, right?
Yeah.
And then, and now I'm just going to break down his reflex and his coordination time. Everyone remembers that finals where he lost track of the clock and hit it out, and LeBron is a walking meme everywhere you go, right? Yeah. Mental acuity is also something that's genetic, but also something that can be trained. Do you think his lifestyle is a factor into why that happened, or why he sometimes lapses in those judgments?
I don't know if that's the case or not. I feel like some players just have they're just not mentally aware of the game sometimes.
So that's what I'm saying.
And it could be hard. I could be maybe he was drinking the night before and he was maybe a little hazy. I don't know, but I'm not gonna put that on him. I will say this, some players are just not mentally aware of the game, and that's why you have greats like Chris Paul that are running the floor,
right?
They're the generals on the floor. They're the coach on the floor, right? And why is that? Because they're mentally aware of everything, not just time and scenario, but what are the other teams doing, right? What are their play calls? And what does number 2 mean? Because number 2 means different for every single team, right? So he's analyzing, okay, they call 2, I'm going to see what this 2 is all about,
Yeah.
right? Whereas some players don't really care about that, right? They're just guarding the 2. They're not really noticing what the 2 is. They're just running after the player, right? So there are some players are like living in the moment, while some players are like outside of that, and they're kind of like, even though they're in it, they're on the court, they're kind of viewing everything from like an outside perspective.
Yeah.
So J.R. Smith wasn't that guy. J.R. Smith definitely was always in the moment. That's why he's not one of the greats. He definitely had a lot of lapses, and that was the biggest lapse of the career, right? And that's the one that stuck with him. But there was so many other lapses, times in, times out, and that goes from when he was a rookie. When he was on Denver, he used to have great games where he was dropping 30, and then the next game, literally the next day, you'd be like, who is this guy?
And you see, that's like something that can be trained. That's why players watch tape, right? That's why you have Phil Jackson mindset coaches, right, that try to let them become aware of what's going on everywhere, right? So for all these players, from everything we just talked about, from different body types to different fiber counts to different training methodologies, let's just wrap this video up, this episode up with, remember, everything can be trained, different body types, different genetics, different whatever you want to call it. Know who you are. If you love the sport of basketball and you want to play in it, you want to develop in it, know what you're trying to do, know where you're suited, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click the like button down below and hit subscribe to see more videos like this one. Take care.